how to reprogram your mind for subconscious success. The science behind what actually happens whenever we reprogram ourselves. What is up, BLivers? Elizabeth Otis here, and today we are going to be talking about exactly that. Now, if you are new here, make sure you smash the subscribe button because I already know you about the life of designing a life of fulfillment through conscious creation because you already clicked on this video. You wouldn't be resonating with us if you wouldn't have been here. So go ahead and do that right now so you don't miss any of our videos. All right, now let's go ahead and dive right in. Now, the reason why I wanted to bring up the science behind of what actually happens when we reprogram ourselves is because there's not like one way, there's not two ways, there's not the way in reprogramming ourselves. There's many ways you can do so. So it's really important to understand like what actually happens, because then you can either come up with your own way to do it, or you can not get so caught up in like having to do something a specific way when really it's not the action you're trying to do, it's the result you're trying to get, right? So I always like to use the analogy of you don't market to market, you market to get clients, right? So all these law of attraction techniques, all these manifesting techniques, all these reprogramming techniques, it's not the technique that you're trying to learn, it's the result you're trying to get. So that's why I am going over what actually happens whenever we reprogram ourselves, and yes, that's why I'm doing that. So anyways, going ahead into diving in. Now, as more and more people wake up around the world, as more and more people become really conscious, they realize that they have been conditioned to be apart from all that what they truly are. And in modern day terms, in 3D terms, that might sound something like, we realize we have beliefs about ourselves that don't get us what we want, that don't allow us to feel how we want to feel. But the reason why I said we've been conditioned in a way that separates us all from what we truly are is because everything I'm about to tell you is based upon science and is going to help you how all of this stuff comes together and play with universal laws and also the way our neurology works. So going ahead and diving in. Now, what I like to say is you're not necessarily reprogramming yourself. It's just like the word we humans use. What you're actually doing is you are uncovering all the energetic blockages that allow you to not be who you truly are. So naturally, like we all derive from source energy. Naturally, like we are one. We are one with everything. Law of oneness teaches us that energy it cannot be created or destroyed. Everything is the same, just in different expressions from each other. So what shapes the way we operate over time and the way we are as humans is the way we are literally wired together, the way our neurons are wired together. And so I always like to relate this to a corn maze. Think of a big old blank field, like a giant blank field. That field can be made into many different pathways of the corn maze, right? And so when you are reprogramming yourself, what happens is when we take a look at our neurons, I know this is I'm going to make these connect, so don't worry. When we take a look at our neurons, they're kind of like a corn maze, right? Because we can essentially take a corn maze and shape the bushes however we want, or the corn, whatever. We can shape it however we want, or we can regrowth path, add barriers, so we can basically shape the cornfield however we want. Our neurons are the same, except we're not just planting and adding blockages and mowing down areas. We are doing it through two things, through consistency and through dominancy. So the way we either reprogram ourselves, design our corn maze, is we are either going to fill in what's already there, or we are going to mow down areas, right? Because that's going to design the cornfield to be however we want. So let's take a look at that in analogy to what dominancy and consistency are in relation to mowing and planting areas in your cornfield. So when we take a look at the two things that shape our programming, that shape our neurology, it is dominancy and consistency. Because what happens whenever we program ourselves is a new message is being sent off to a particular area in our neuron that is not usually sent off. So the reason why we have our programming is because anytime we make a motion, like as I'm moving my hand, as I'm speaking, a neuron has to be fired off to like tell the next cell what to do. And the more and more a message is being sent in a particular way, the wider the tube is. They call it a synapse, but we're just going to call it a tube for like basic terms. So like the wider the tube gets between us, and the widened tubes are the quote unquote current pathways in your corn maze. So the widened tubes are your current programming, are the like in the current paths of the corn maze, right? So whenever we want to not have those open anymore, we just simply have to minimize what is being fired and wired through those tubes, and take that same energy, take those same messages, and send them through a different way, mow down a different path. So the number one thing out of the two is dominancy. Now, you always hear consistency is key, which is very true. But when it comes to us humans, it's dominancy, because dominancy is what is in relation to our emotions, our emotional attachment. That is why someone could have something happen to them one time and either be like traumatized, like rape, or be absolutely changed forever, inspired by maybe if they were homeless one day and like a stranger came up and like gave them motivational talk and like helped them get back on their feet or whatever, right? Like one time something had happened, and it didn't have to happen a million times, it didn't have to happen more than once, just one time it happened, but there was such an emotional attachment to it that it literally shut down other areas of the way our neurons operate and just completely opened up new pathways and wanted to keep on serving that. And so our emotions are attached to pain and pleasure, right? So like, what are we linking pain to? What are we linking pleasure to? So if someone was traumatized, they're linking pain to maybe the same area that they were in and linking more pleasure to staying inside. So that's kind of how people get shaped. If you need me to explain this a little bit more in depth, let me know. I'll make like a longer in-depth video. But the purpose of this video is to teach you guys what actually happens whenever we do reprogram ourselves, so that you have ways to reprogram yourself in addition to what I'm about to tell you. And you don't have to get caught up in like all the different ways of doing so. So anyway, so that's dominancy. So whenever we are doing any of the techniques of reprogramming ourselves, whether that be just action, whether that be visualization, whether that be affirmations, whatever you do, you want to link emotional intensity to it. Dominate all factors, become completely psychosomatic, and shift your state of being to be immersed in the feeling that you want to feel, because dominancy, our emotional attachment, is what's really shaping the program. But then next, of course, is consistency. So I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard like, oh, I can't sleep, I always wake up at this time. It's because our cells learn in pattern. And our whole entire body is made up of cells. So that's why habits, consistency relates to habits, like dominance relates to emotions. Consistency relates to habits because those are that's like our muscle memory, that's our cell memory, that's what's keeping the time ticking in our little cells and allowing, okay, at this time, this is what we do. That's why we get hungry around the same times. That's why if you drive a certain way time after time, but then for some reason you're going to a different place, sometimes you still end up going to the same place you always go, because if you get on autopilot mode where your programming is dominant, you're not consciously making new decisions, you follow in the programming, and your programming is followed with what you're doing consistently, right? So our programming, and which brings me to the next point. So that's all simply is like, whenever we are reprogramming ourselves, it's happening through dominancy, which is aka our emotions, and we're doing it through consistency, which is aka habits. And whatever happens in our brain whenever we reprogram ourselves, is we relating to a corn maze, is you have a maze the way it already is, and whenever you send a new message off, a neuron will either shrink, like the synapse between neurons will either shrink, or it's going to open up, in regards to whatever you are shaping it to do. So that's what happens scientifically within our bodies. So whatever you're doing, you want to make sure you're linking to dominancy and consistency. Dominancy and consistency. Remember that. You're not trying to market, you're marketing to get clients. It's not the action you're trying to do, it's the result you're trying to get. So remember why you're doing this, what happens when we're doing this. That's why I always talk about fundamentals, because it's not the action you're doing, it's the result you're trying to get. Now, one thing I was going to say is, actually I gotta pause this because I totally forgot. Okay, I remember. One thing I wanted to say was, whenever our programming is taking place, it's only happening when we are really like in subconscious mode. So our subconscious is the motherboard. It's always working. But in order for anything for us to go to our subconscious mind, in order for anything to us to operate subconsciously, we have to be somewhat on autopilot mode. We have to somewhat consciously resonate with the idea or accept whatever thing, because everything that we perceive doesn't first go through our subconscious. No, it first comes to us consciously. So we have to either A, resonate with what's going on at some sort of level, even if it's a little bit, and allow it to go back to our subconscious to take over, or we are just in autopilot mode, a mode where naturally our brain waves are being taken over by our subconscious brain, because that's just human. That's the way us humans survive. When we're in autopilot mode, that's why we don't crash our car when we drive. Our subconscious takes over. So you want to be aware of when this typically happens, because if you are in the process of reprogramming yourself, you're working on a big project or whatever, you want to avoid times where you're falling in autopilot mode, because those are the times where you're not going to be operating in your new state of being until it becomes second nature. So you want to make sure that you're doing this consistently with dominancy each and every single day until it is second nature. And then from there, you will be already so habitually wired with improving yourself that you won't have to keep falling back to the same area and like reconditioning yourself. You'll naturally just be habitually improving yourself. And anytime you consciously hear something negative that doesn't serve you, you're like, oh, wait, instead of you like allowing it to go straight back to your subconscious because you resonated with it so much, you're like, wait, that doesn't sound right. No, I don't accept that. And then you become more and more conscious. So it's all about being very conscious, being very aware of what's going on in your surroundings. Because remember, your subconscious cannot take over if you are being fully conscious. So remember that always. Now, I did create a I did create a BLIVE checklist. It is for our BLivers. It has all different exercises you can do each and every day to reprogram yourself, because I know this video was more so about what happens and the fundamentals of how. But if you want different exercises on how to, that checklist is going to be in the description, available for free for you guys. It's not free because it's worth free. It is free because I know the value it can bring for you guys. And sometimes all you need is that extra oomph. Sometimes you just need someone to guide you when you didn't know otherwise, because you don't know what you don't know. So that's why it's free to you guys, not because it's worth free. So take advantage while it's there for you guys. It's going to be in the description. And then also, if you are needing someone to work with more one-on-one, I'm just like repeating all of my words today. It's crazy. It's kind of funny. But if you want someone to work one-on-one, I do have a couple more sessions open for the ending of this month. You can also reach me through the description link, my website, all different ways to get a hold of me, guys. So as always, make sure that you implement what we learned here today. Don't just watch this video. Go on to implement it so you can actually experience that which you desire. Quit wanting it. Move into the vibration of having it. You deserve it. You're worthy of it. Everything is yours. You are one. You are part of the universe. You are the money that you want. You are the success you desire. You are the love that you wish you would receive. It's already within you. It's just about lining it up, my friend. It's just about lining it up. I know how it feels to be so incredibly frustrated, to not have what you want, to not feel the way you want, to not get the results time and time after you want. It all has to do with our programming. Energy comes first. Energy comes first. Energy comes first. Energy comes first. I love you guys so much. As always, dream big, live large, and be live. Thank you.